Hey everybody, welcome to News from Heaven. This is the show where we take an annotated journey through the writings of Emanuel Swedenborg to see what we can figure out about life and the mind. Today we're going to be talking about spirit communication. I'm going to be giving you the way in which one spirit interacts and interfaces and talks to another spirit in the spiritual world. We're specifically going to be looking at telepathy, mental images, and sharing happiness. And that's all cool stuff. But we got a good trick here too, because we're going to tie all this, which is about spirit communication, which might sound like it's something way outside you, and see what we can get from that that's going to help every single person in their day-to-day journey or quest to escape the negativity that's dogging all of us. If you're like me, and I bet you are, here's us. Here's anxiety, worry, fear, insecurity about how good we are at drawing arrows, whatever it is that's getting us down. And I want to stop and say thanks. Everybody who's been commenting and describing what they're going through, that's awesome. It helps me. It helps other people who come read it. We need to know that we're in this together. So if you want to take a minute, what are your dark clouds? What's clogging up your mind? What we're going to do today is try to introduce some light that can help dispel this negative weather system. And how are we going to get that from spirit communication? That's the Swedenborg experience. So take a look at Seekers of Heaven, Volume 2. That's where we are. Click the link, download it. There's a description in the YouTube video. You can get there. Okay, we're beginning 1390. It's a mighty scroll from the top, but it's worth it. Okay, so we're going to jump right into this conversation where Swedenborg is describing the interactions of spirits in the afterlife. He says, "It is not only the feelings and thoughts of others that are shared, but their knowledge as well." We're coming into this, it's already started, but here we've already got, there are feelings being shared, we've got thoughts being shared, we've got knowledge being shared. This trifecta of sharing. And so the communal nature of the world that he describes is as such. So you've got a spirit, which remember, that's us. Someday we will be these misshapen stick people ourselves. It's just a person who's died. You got a bunch of them, right? And we all have this stuff going on that usually is an inside your head thing. You feel something, you think something, you know something. But there, feelings can be shared. They can radiate out, and other people can directly pick up on, not just think of, understand what you're thinking and imagine it, but really share your feeling. Not only that, it can extend to thoughts. That there can be this, what you would probably describe as telepathy, where you can be, without using the mouth, communicating ideas one to the other. This is a very common feature of near-death experiences, other spiritual experiences, that there's this sharing there. But not just what you're thinking at the time, what you know. In general, your knowledge base can go out and educate the person next to you almost by osmosis. And he's about to describe that here. So it ends up looking like a mess, but it's a mess of sharing and caring. So widely is knowledge shared that each spirit thinks he or she already knows what the next spirit knows, even if the first spirit had previously known nothing about the subject. And you'll have this, again, I'm bringing up the near-death experience because people will say, suddenly I had this huge download of information. I knew all this stuff and felt like I'd known it my whole life. And Swedenborg is saying that's because it's like spiritual Wi-Fi. Everybody's plugged in to this knowledge there. Everything that others know about accordingly becomes common property. And here we have our first real, emotional life lesson here. Because this theme of common property and of common a sharing of love, a common experience, a common valuing everyone of the other, this is at the core of what, not just how people behave in heaven, but what heaven is. Heaven is a state of mind that's defined by not just common property, like, sure, you can borrow my lawnmower if you'd like, but common property, like even the happiness that I have, the things I know, I want to give this to you. And I find that the idea of something like that, of things that you thought always are going to be regimented inside somebody else, really sets you up for a hierarchy. Because if in your mind you're imagining, there's some people at the top and they just know all that, they're so smart and they know all this stuff, and then there's me way down here at the bottom and I don't really know anything and I'm not smart, I'm never going to get there, that there's just going to be this talent gap. But this common property in heaven shows like, no, it's not about what I have and what you have. It's what we have that we can bring together. That is a very powerful antidote to these black clouds trying to come in, because they're always trying to tell you you're less than other people and that's why you're miserable. Or when you are better than other people, you better stay better, because what if you get worse? But if there ain't no better, if it's just what you can bring to the table and we're all going to enjoy a better and better feast because of what everyone's brought, that is suddenly relieving these dark thoughts of a lot of power that they used to have. So here we're starting to get, even though we're describing what spirits do, it's something that applies to us right now. But on the other hand, so you might say, well, what's the point of doing anything? What's the point of going out and learning and trying to grow spiritually if you just end up all getting everything? Interesting little line here. And let me just get a different highlight color. Some spirits retain the knowledge, some do not. That even though you have, well, I'm going to draw spirits here, and they're just going to be little balls. But each of these is a person who lived a whole life and is now up in some community. So if you have knowledge going out, everybody's got this knowledge because this person's sending out theirs, they're sending out theirs. It's a nice communal of knowledge, or communal knowledge. What Swedenborg says is there's certain ones that if you took them out, you could still have that community of knowledge, because they wouldn't retain it if they moved out anyway. They're not sort of the server where the knowledge is stored. But there's other ones that if you take them out, a lot of knowledge gets lost. Without those people, the common experience loses a lot. So you can still, it's interesting balance of everything's everybody's, but there is value to the individual contributions you bring. It's not just everybody brings the exact same thing in the exact same volume. So it's a little bit of both there. All right, now this paragraph, you can kind of get lost and just say it's one Swedenborg paragraph after another, but something cool is going to happen in 1391 that was really what made me excited about doing this particular episode in the first place. Spirits share these things with each other in conversations. So we got methods of sharing. So conversation, that doesn't sound that strange. You and I converse about things. It's mediated by the TV, but it's something you talk to people. That's no big deal. But what we don't do is communicate through mental images and accompanied by visual representations. So we're used to the idea of talking. Oh, here we go. Another try to draw a human head. It will be in the Smithsonian. There we go. So we're used to the idea of talking. We got our conversations here. That's what happens. But mental images, that's a term that Swedenborg uses a lot. And this is what I believe he means by it. How would I ever know what he actually means by it? Because you go along and read and think it's one thing, but then he uses it in a way where you think, wait, actually, maybe it was this other thing that I didn't think of. My best guess is that, when you think of a bear, or try not to think of a bear, now you're thinking about a bear, what's the actual picture that comes along with that? Or when you have a memory of something, what's the picture that comes? Or when you're you've got an idea, but you can't quite express it, what are you referencing with that idea you can't express? That's your mental image. So he says that they're able to actually, instead of, I can't get this into words, they can actually, you've got a mental image in the head, somehow you can produce that same image in a way that's shareable. And I don't know if this visual representation is different, but you've got some kind of almost like a PowerPoint presentation that further brings it out. A little bit like what you can do in video now, where I can be talking to you about stuff and be doing not very good drawings at the same time. That is maybe we're edging towards, with technology, the spiritual condition, right? So we got this sharing here. Let's get that speech bubble out of the way. The images that compose their thoughts also take visible form. So that would be, out here. You see, which allows everything to be presented in full detail. And something that's captivated me about the world that Swedenborg describes, the afterlife that he describes, in a way, it's not even so much how nice the houses are and how great the views are, but it's the way that thoughts and feelings can be investigated and explored and understood, which is this amazing promise to somebody like me who's struggled with these thoughts and feelings and being haunted by various concepts, that you can kind of take this and look at it and unpack it and understand it and take away the potency of negative things. This is cool. And he describes this system in which that's that's so achievable to a level you wouldn't even imagine before. So here we go with the really cool stuff. Spirits can depict more through a single mental image than they can express in 1,000 words. So much more efficient. But then, here we go. I'm not saying any line is better than another, but this is kind of our superstar line here. Angels even perceive what lies behind the image, what feeling is connected with it, where that feeling comes from, what the purpose of it is, and many other inner aspects. Oh, so I didn't think you could ever know that much or get that specific about a mental image, because isn't a mental image just some weird, abstract, fleeting, personal, isolated experience? Let's dig into what that sentence implies. So let's say you're here and you've got a mental image, and let's choose a negative one. So I'm imagining this gray scene, whatever that might mean. This is a reminder of some way you feel like you failed, or there's a particular event you keep being haunted by, or there's a perception about your value. Whatever it is that when you sort of think of it, it appears with some kind of image. Whatever this represents, you think all this thing is just me sensing reality. The truth is I'm no good, or this thing shouldn't have happened, or there's no hope. And that's just, in this mental image I get, it's just a reflection of that. It's just me, like you see a tree, I'm seeing the truth of this because that's what it is. But look at what the angels can do to something like this. Angels can even perceive what lies behind the image, what feeling is connected with it, and where that feeling how much do you highlight that? Where that feeling comes from, what the purpose of it is, and many other inner aspects. So you've got something. Let's start with what lies behind the image. So you just think an image is reality, but Swedenborg is implying here that there's something behind this. There's something that composes it and makes it up. There's a reason why it is like it is, and that isn't necessarily the events that have unfolded in life. There could be some kind of spiritual something behind it. So that's opening up just to think, what makes the components? Why is there this tree in the corner? Why is this person this size in here? Now, I'm not saying a mental image is ever this tangible or defined, but whatever the concepts are that are in yours, do you get what I'm talking about? Whatever the concepts are, why do they collage together in this particular way that has this particular impact on you? What feeling is connected with it? Because you think it's just a thought, but there's something driving it. Every concept, every image has an emotional engine. So what is that? What is giving this mental image the fuel to survive? It's just like a TV image. There's got to be some electricity coming in there. What comes with it? So is what's fueling this thing, something like fear? Is it something like jealousy? Because in a way you're just wishing your life was better than something else. That's what's fueling it. It could be also something, though, that's much less sort of cliche than that. Some complex description. Not even sure what I mean by that, but is it a complex string of variables about you? That because I think like this, and because I had this told to me, so this goes into this. The point of it is, this is the reason it's there. That it might be that the feeling is the reason it's there, rather than reality is the reason it's there. And to me, anything that gets this image to no longer be an automatic ambassador of reality suddenly frees you up to, wait, my life is going better than I thought it was before. And finally, not finally, but this is probably the biggest one, where that feeling comes from. Because according to Swedenborg, you've got a whole spiritual world. You got angels up here. Angels always have not that. Angels always have yellow shining out of them in my representation. So you've got angels up here, and on the other side and down lower, you may have evil spirits who are trying to bother you with some kind of negative red energy. And Swedenborg says this image is the result of spiritual influence. So is this something the angels are sending you down from heaven? Probably not, given its function. Could it be something that hell is trying to get you to be worried about? That Swedenborg could even got to the point, and this is a point that I would dream of getting to, were I ever as fortunate as Swedenborg, when he got some kind of perception. Let's say that he got his dark clouds were acting up, and they started to say to him, hey, Swedenborg, this is what's wrong with you. This is what's going to happen that you're going to be worried about. Here's what you should have done better. Here's something about life that bothers you. He could actually say he could look at those thoughts and figure out, okay, who's sending this to me? And he'd find some spirit at the back end of it, or community of spirits, and he would even go and chew them out sometimes. Like, why are you trying to get me to be miserable about myself? So that's the state he called perception. And so to think that this mental image that sits there and haunts us and is something that's been plaguing us for years and years and years, you could actually figure out what factory they made it in. Have you ever watched a horror movie or something that really disturbed you, but then you watch the making of, and it takes the edge off because you see, oh, this monster is just styrofoam. Here's the person. They look like a human in it. This is how they made it, as scary as it is. Think if you could go into the movie prop studio that led to the making of the things that make you the most miserable, and you could deconstruct them and see, oh, in the end, it's not scary. It looks scary, but it's not scary. That's the promise of the psychology that Swedenborg describes in the spirit. So that, to me, is like that is the best news. Talk about news from heaven. That is the best news that you could get. And then we're not even done. There's a final clause here, what the purpose of it is. That don't forget in this picture, even though it doesn't seem like it when you're dealing with scary mental images like this, there's God. And God is streaming out divine providence over everything. And somehow, doesn't mean God wanted this thing in your mind, doesn't mean that God doesn't worry about the pain it causes you, but it is serving some function. The only reason it's being allowed is that providence is saying something can be done with this. In the end, this can turn out good for you. Its presence in your mind, the way you react, even if you don't know how you're getting there, somehow this can be good. So just to think, even something that can seem completely inhuman and just like this is a specter, this thing should never be in here, there's a purpose to it. And in the end, all divine purposes lead to good. That's it. So look at all this stuff we got here and many other inner aspects. So even stuff we don't even list here, that's how much you can deconstruct an idea and how much relief it is, if you've ever struggled with ideas or feelings, to know, hey, there's a potential freedom from this thing in there. So to me, that rocks. Hopefully I played it up. Okay, the last number here, we're going to shift into some real sharing and what makes heaven heaven. So going on, it is also common in the other world for one person to communicate pleasure and happiness in a remarkable way by actually passing them on to a number of others who are as much affected by them as the original person. Because we often think, to get again our great dots diagram of spirits, there's a bunch of people in the afterlife, right? And you think, well, these could be any people. You think one person is happy. It doesn't have really anything to do with how happy other people are. Because you could be very, very happy, and the person next to you is miserable. And the things that are making you happy don't really apply to this person, so they don't transfer. In some cases, we get more happy knowing we're happier than other people. There's no communal nature to it. But what Swedenborg is describing is that in the afterlife, this happiness, if you are overflowing with it, you can actually give your happiness, not just describe what's going on to you, but take the happiness out of you and give it to the next person. And they can give it to the next person, and there's no decrease. That it's not like this first person is, I gave away all my happiness, now I don't have it. That there's actually what you would call, it goes from competition, I would definitely win a writing competition, from a competition to a positive feedback loop. Because the more happy this person gets, the more happy the rest of them get, and here you get a picture of heaven. The communication takes place without any lessening of the feelings in the person who shares them to begin with. I, too, was given the opportunity to share my pleasure with others by transferring it to them. So even Emanuel Swedenborg himself had this experience. And here we go with a little bit of vision casting. You can imagine then what kind of happiness exists in people who love their neighbor more than themselves. This is the state of heaven. If you're this person and what you're happier about the happiness of this person and 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 this person, even more so than you are about your own happiness. Not that you don't like being happy, but you care so much about all these people that them being happy makes your day more than you being happy, and want nothing more than to spread their happiness to others. If that's your MO, how much happier once this starts spreading, as an unintended consequence, you get happier and happier and happier. Their attitude traces its origin to the Lord. That this is what God is. This weird little picture, that's God. It's wanting those around you to be happier and happier. This is the nature, the essence. This is what kind of person God is. Their attitude traces its origin to the Lord, who communicates happiness to angels in the same way. All of heaven is just like it is because God is sending out influence. So it's this, not imitation, but this reflection of God. When people share happiness, they are constantly passing it along in the way just described, but they do so without reflecting on their active role in the process and without making a conscious, deliberate decision to engage in it. So it's not artificial, like, oh, I've got my to-do list, try to make somebody happy, check that little box. This is just the mode of heaven, that you spontaneously, you want to help people. It's just in your nature, like so many things become habit. Doing this is like a habit, but it's very organic, it grows, and it's this system that is designed so that we are, rather than it being a competition for scarce resources, the more people that are in it and the more people that are around, the happier and happier and happier everyone gets. That doesn't sound so terrible, right? And that's the news from heaven. So how'd it go? Did this help at all? Did talking about the way spirits communicate get you in a better mood? Did anything in here lift you up? Let me know in the comments. I want to know if this is working. I want to know if we're approaching this right. I want to know what you learned about it that I didn't think of before, so I can, use more tools to kind of get at my own head weather. And do you feel like you have anything you can take away? Like what little spiritual vitamins can you now move into your week with? Share them, because people are going to come here. They're going to look at the comments, and they're going to get uplifted by your sharing, sometimes even more so than the talking that I'm doing right now. No offense to me. The point is, we're all trying to lift each other out of the fray into happiness, because we don't need to walk around in the clouds. We want to walk around in the clouds of heaven, right? That's the point. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.